Welcome back, everyone. Time to get the show on the road. Can't remember where we left off. Oh yeah. So we're gonna get hit with a pretty heavy scene right off the bat here. Bones is chipper this morning because he's got a date with Rana. They're going on a nice little picnic. That's gonna be a sweet little scene right out of a Disney movie, right? Yeah, right. You played this game before, haven't you? Most of you have, I'm sure. So this was a scene that originally, actually Mark wanted to write at some point. I remember he was gonna just sort of, do the dialogue for this scene, but I think he basically chickened out. I asked him, we had gotten to a point where it was about time to do this part, and he says, well, you maybe ought to do it. I think, we realized how important it was going to be. But I think he did throw in a few lines of dialogue here, since this was very much his plot twist idea, his vision for Rana, the character. Now, up until this point, she comes off like, just this sweet little, person who likes Bones, doesn't care that he's a skeleton. Just one of those nice people who can see past the surface. But it's not quite that simple. And there's sort of a uncomfortably long build up to the revelation here. Just a lot of that. You remember one of the earlier videos I was talking about how conversations can get sort of a little too wordy when you're trying to make them like natural. They say things like yes, or really, yes, just like these little things, but it works in this case because it builds up tension. Something's wrong, and then she just dropped the bomb that she's a necromancer's apprentice, and she's looking to recruit a minion. She liked the idea of recruiting Stoic because he was, experienced, and it would be a learning experience for her, whereas it wouldn't be, her resurrecting a dead person and having to help them adjust to, being a skeleton. And I think she's a little bit squeamish about it still. Solik. Oh, well, I spoiled that. Her master tells her to, has told her that she could just go into a cemetery and just pick a grave, but she wants to do it this way. She wants to sort of bring Stoic into the fold. And what's sad about it is that she does actually like him. It's not like she doesn't like him. She just feels like, well, he's a skeleton, so as long as he doesn't have a master, he's not doing what he should be doing. It's very just kind of ignorant, it's she spent a lot of time with the Midnight Guild and not really learning about what other points of view there are about the subject. Because I always envision necromancy as sort of the wedge issue in Solus politics. I guess there's a few. But, it's a bit like abortion in the sense that there's very powerful, ideas about life and what is alive and what's death. And it's those things that we can never really know for ourselves. So that's why it's hard to come to any sort of consensus on an issue like that. But so that's what that's about, and that scene I think it shocked a lot of people. I don't think hardly anybody saw it coming, and it certainly did good stuff for Rana, the character. She's a lot more interesting now. And now we're back to this Daydream plotline. So let's talk about Daydream for a while, because this was sort of a funny story about how this all came about. Aside from just being like an interesting kind of way to take the plot in a way that people wouldn't expect from a game like this. It was sort of inspired by our experiences with the band Nightwish. If you don't know them, they're I guess you'd call them symphonic metal. You know, heavy metal's got so many subgenres, but I'm pretty sure they're symphonic in the sense that their music is backed up by a lot of orchestral sounds. You know, lots of strings and shit like that. It's pretty epic. And we've always liked their music. If you watch the Clean Slate Let's Play, there's a decent amount of Nightwish songs in there. So, oh, sorry about that. Kids are up late last night. What are you gonna do? So we brought a band in here and we called them Daydream. It's sort of like, you know, Nightwish, Daydream. It's sort of like playing on the name. And there's, you know, it gets even more detailed. We went to me, my brother, who, you know, was sort of a guest host a few entries back, and Mark went to Toronto years ago to see Nightwish, and we had a great time. That was an excellent trip, excellent concert. Yeah, it was just awesome. And what we didn't know until several months later was that was actually the last concert with the original singer, a woman named Tarja. I think I'm saying that right, Tarja. Although everybody says Tarja, I'm sure she loves that. They're from Finland, so it's, you know, their names are not quite what we're used to in America anyway. That the band kicked her out right after that concert. And so that was sort of stunning to learn. And one of the main reasons cited was she had married a South American guy that they met on tour named Marcelo. So you see where I'm going here. So this guy, Ursello. Now, I get Marcelo wasn't in the band necessarily. At least he wasn't, you know, playing any instruments. But he was sort of taking it upon himself to be his wife's manager and, interfering with the band and all that. So I think I'd even read an anecdote in some book that they were going to open for Iron Maiden, and then Marcelo went and screwed all that up. So I would have been pretty pissed off at him if it was me. But I guess the Finnish people are known for being a little reticent. And they didn't, it just sort of festered. And they didn't really talk about the tensions until it was really too late. And they kicked Tarja out, and she had no fucking idea what was going on. And that was a really controversial thing. Like, it was like 10 years ago or more. And the fans are still having, like, these insane arguments about it. But at the time, it was very easy to be a fan of the band and say, Marcelo sucks. He ruined the band. It was almost like, a male Yoko Ono, if you know that. So we were like, let's make this singer kind of a dirtbag and name him Ursello. Just, we thought it might be a little over the top to call him Marcelo, but came up with something that was very similar. And so that was the story of how Daydream came to be. And so it's kind of funny to think about now because so much time has passed. And Nightwish went through 2 more singers. They're on the 3rd one now. I guess it's just hard to be the singer of that band. But that's one of those things that I don't think anybody would pick up on unless we explained it. So I figured I might as well tell the story. And while I've been blathering, we're in this important scene for Auburn, where she's trying to reconcile how she feels about being in Port Ariana. And she's, starting to like Sada a bit, but I think for the moment it's much more about what he represents than, really him. It's the idea of, like, kind of settling down and not having to worry about money, although she doesn't really. Like she says, she gets paid a lot. But just, sort of reaching that end point where you can just enjoy life and not have to worry. I think a lot of us want that, to not have to worry about paying the bills and how you're gonna, afford things. But you have to be pretty lucky to get to that point where you don't have to worry about that stuff. And this is a goofy little scene where they decide that Auburn needs to replace the bassist for Daydream because she got injured mysteriously. And this was a little contrived in the sense that we had that sprite of the red-haired woman that is Auburn's sprite, but somebody had made a version of it playing a guitar, not knowing, of course, that we would use it for Auburn. So we saw those band sprites, and we were like, "Oh shit! One of them looks just like Auburn. She ought to be in the band." Otherwise, we'll have to come up with this is her twin sister or something. So we that's what we did. So we came up with this, plot device where she would join the band. And that, of course, was the origin of helped shape her backstory. Just that she had musical experience. She played the violin and, as you find out later, the piano. So she's got enough general music knowledge to take to the guitar. And now this is interesting with Saad that he doesn't necessarily let on right away, but that thing with Daydream talking shit about Shroud and Stoic while stumping for Kovak at Equipment King really gets to him. He's cranky. He acts cranky because he's always kind of cranky, but it sort of upset him deeply, and you see that more later. But he's now he's determined just to find proof to expose Kovak. And oh my goodness, I'm sorry, you guys. I've been up since 2 a.m. I maybe slept like a half hour since then. Just kids, they don't always do what you want them to. And we had thunder and lightning storms last night, and you get the idea. Right, so this is an important scene for Gino because he calls Saad out. And I think the players hopefully have already developed a lot of respect for him, so it works. So he sort of, when he says something, it makes you stop and you go, whoa, Gino. But, and people still say like, oh, the game thinks Saad is always right. It's like, no, you guys, it's not true. He's getting caught. He just got caught out by Gino, but I mean, Gino's not the, he's a pretty level-headed kind of guy. He doesn't feel like he has to win an argument. He wasn't able to convince Saad not to do it, but not to break into Kovak's mansion. But he just wanted to get his 2 cents in, and he did. And later, Stoic calls him out. So I mean, he gets called out by pretty much like most of the characters. So I mean, I don't get it when people say like, oh, Saad's so paranoid and willing to bend the rule. Bark at the moon. And Saad's so paranoid and the game agrees with him and everything. It's like, no, come on, you guys, fucking pay attention. Just because the hero does something doesn't mean that it's endorsed by me, the writer. It's like, how clear do I have to make it? Do I have to like appear as a sprite and say, hi, I'm the writer of the game? I don't approve of this. I don't think this was the right course of action. Don't try it at home. I mean, I don't know. People say the game's so obvious, but it's like they want me to go so far the other way to... I don't know. Whatever. I'm cranky, too. That's what lack of sleep does to you. Anyway, so this is the mansion dungeon. There's a lot to say about this one. That brief scene with Kovak and Vec that now seems kind of pointless. Originally was going to have a bigger purpose because we were going to have bad guys in here. In its current form, there are no monsters in this dungeon. It's completely exploratory. And just for the record, I know I memorized most of the numbers and stuff that you need to know, so I'm just going to plow through it. Somebody who didn't know would spend much more time exploring. So consider this a a spoilery walkthrough of how to do this dungeon. But we were gonna have golems fight. You know, just these like they were gonna be part of the security system. But you know, it was just that question of how much work were we gonna give Anchor. And so we decided not to, because, you know, he had a bunch of other monsters to do, and since this was the second arc, it was the first arc where he was working with us, he also had to do the main characters' battlers, so we were waiting on Shrouds and Stoics and Finleys and Auburns and, you know, all the other bosses that show up in this arc. Shit, guys, the missiles, they are coming! Fire shit! But I'm late tired. I am late tired. But that gag is from a really old meme, before we even were calling them memes. It was just this, like, goofy video of the world ending and these countries talking to each other. Now, this is cheating a little bit because Auburn is supposed to be playing bass, but that's clearly a lead guitar riff she just played. What can I say? I couldn't find, you know, I couldn't find just a bass only thing that was appropriate. I mean, I'm sure I could have, you know, found a clip of somebody playing bass, but what I liked is that she just played Arias' theme from Clean Slate. So I think that's kind of cool. Now this dungeon is actually my dungeon. I made the vast majority of it, with the exception of the pot moving puzzles that you see down there and the bull rush, which gets introduced in this dungeon. Now, because while we got to this part, Mark was still working on that mine dungeon. Like, he spent most of Arc 2 trying to wrangle that down into something that he was happy with. And so at one point he asked me, like, hey, do you want to try doing the mansion? You know, I guess he felt like it was the kind of location I could work with, just because it was indoors, so the mapping wouldn't be too bad. So yeah, these are most of my puzzles. So naturally, it's a lot of textual stuff, you know, numbers, letters. I like this one, though, the hell. We used to joke in elementary school, you know, if you turn the clock upside down, 11:34, it says hell, and that's a bad word. Ooh. You know, it was very funny to a third or fourth grader. And you could do that with, like, a calculator, too. Like, if you put 8008, because of how blocky the calculator letters are, it kind of looked like boob. Or if you put 663, it looked kind of like egg. If you turn it upside down, I had a few of them. So mostly these are my puzzles. And one of our testers, I remember, for this arc was playing it, and they're like, "Oh, is that why it's boring?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Fucking jackass. And this is a scene I like quite a lot because, you know, you're getting your usual exposition for a puzzle, but it's interrupted by the main plot, where, you know, Shroud is noticing how sort of quiet and miserable Stoic is acting, and so he's like, "I thought, what's going on anyway?" And finally he gets him to spit it out, and he drops the vase. Oh crap! I love that. It's sort of a, you know, story and gameplay coming together for a second in a way that you don't usually expect. But I like that they have this moment in the dungeon, because a lot of times in games, you know, they sort of separate the dungeons completely from the rest of the plot line, whereas, you know, nothing's going to happen until you're done going through the cave or whatever. But in this case, they're having, you know, some important conversations, like, while they're solving puzzles, and I think that's and I just like that. It feels real to me. You know, if that would happen, you're just wandering around some mansion at night together, you're going to talk. And this is a fun little puzzle. I'm not sure how, you know, Kovak and Vec get through it without wind magic, but, you know, oh well. I think this is the last one. It's kind of long. Yeah. Now, there's actually a fan game of this that Master of the Wind fan made, He goes by C4D Nerd on YouTube, I think. Yeah, that's it. And where Vec was going through the mansion and fighting the golems that we never got to put into the game. So that was a fun little thing to see. It was the first fan game we ever got. It's been maybe 3 or 4. And I still have it. I don't know if it's hosted anywhere right now, but I could get somebody a copy if they wanted, and I'm sure he could too. And now they're continuing their conversation from earlier, which I like, because they need to solve another puzzle, and yet they're they're taking more time to talk about the Rana stuff because it was such a big deal. And it's kind of nice that Shroud can drop his own kind of self-righteous shtick and be a good friend to Stoic at a time like this, because he's very much wrapped in self-pity right now since his job's in danger, and he feels like he's getting attacked on all fronts, as Sod and as Shroud. And so now is a pretty important moment in the game because it's the bull rush. Oh, that's right. You can use dynamite if you want, if you're boring. Because we had too many people complaining about these button pressing things. I am mighty. But come on, you gotta do the bull rush. I'm finding these clues all out of order. So, forgive me for that. But at least if you play this game and you haven't yet, you'll be able to... you'll still get the experience of exploring the mansion because you won't really see how it's supposed to be done. I'm just going around solving everything. And this is a funny little moment for the lore because it's the corrupted fairy. And they're supposed to be, totally selfless, but this one was corrupted by the influence, I guess. Although, of course, she can't tell the hand that she's in there because they get upset. Yeah, the hand wasn't above killing fairies. It's pretty fucking harsh. I mean, not the hand, Galia. Yeah, all non-humans, no exceptions. And this is where we meet the injured bassist. And she's still not entirely sure what hurt her. But sorry about that. Stay awake, stay awake. I'm gonna fall asleep. You're gonna just hear snoring for the rest of this. But I had some free time. I figured I should do it. So she says something here about how the band has changed for the worse since they met Ursello. And of course that was us kind of like having our fun with the whole Nightwish thing I mentioned earlier. Just like, yeah, that guy ruined the band. But yeah, this conversation goes on for a while. What can I say? It was a while before I got to be a little more concise with this stuff. Alright, so now you put in the witching hour, midnight. Although sources differ on that. Some people say it's 3 o'clock a.m. Like, I've seen movies where that's when it is. But I think traditionally it's midnight. At least in Solest it is. Alright, so I think we're getting near the end here. A few more puzzles. I can't remember where this music is from. I think it's Castlevania again. There's quite a lot of Castlevania music in these early arcs. And now, of course, we've moved this room back so we can do this door. And this is the answer you originally get from multiplication. There's a multiplication puzzle. What do you know? I guess math was good for something. And that cook gives you a hint, but I didn't really need it. We go up and we get this the music crystal. See, it wasn't just for that one scene. It turned out to have a role in the dungeon. Now the lock is music activated. So what can we do? Where do we find music in this dungeon? Can you remember? Ooh, fish. Just steals a fish from right under the cook's nose. Auburn was playing the guitar, wasn't she? Let's go get some music from her. The General of Light song, which is, if you watch the Clean Slate Let's Play, you know that was the name they started calling Arius towards the end of the game when he was leading the forces against Gallia. So, you know, another little reference for you. Legacy will have lots of Masterwind references too, since it takes place about 20 years after. That's coming along okay. Still focusing on the early stuff. Because like I said in the actual video I made of it, everything is just slow with that. Everything takes forever, but that's okay. I keep telling myself that's alright. I mean, because what's the rush? Alright, so this is where they find the evidence. Now, they do find evidence here, but it's not necessarily like the most damning stuff. And you know, that was sort of, a lot of players talked about this, like whether what they find is really like anything bad at all, or is it just distasteful, or is it just, you know, just business. And you don't hate business. You shouldn't hate business. But basically, Ursula was a thief. He used his summoning powers to rob places, keep himself fed while he tried to make it as a singer. And Kovak heard about his what he could do and decided to recruit him. And so he compensated all the business owners and got them to drop the charges. Now this bugs Sod because it means that Ursula was never punished for, you know, the stuff he was doing before. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, is it really that bad? No, not quite. I mean, I'm sure settlements like that happen in the real world all the time. But, you know, Sod's a stickler, and he's also determined to get Kovak for something. So it's almost a little bit grasping at straws here. But I don't know, it may not come across that way. I think people feel like it comes across as like, oh, we busted him now, even though it's not that bad. And now Sod says he wants to like do it during the concert, which is you know, not particularly necessary, as Stoic points out. This is, I think, probably, this may be the most unlikable he gets during the game, this one scene. Well, maybe not. There might be some stuff in Arc 5 or Arc 6 that's worse, but for a while, anyway. He really wants to stick it to Kovak. He's consumed by, like, trying to get even with him. And I think if, you know, it's hard to watch in some ways, but I think if you consider his past and what he went through, psychologically, it makes sense. The sense that he lost his family just very suddenly. And, you know, so now he's sort of gone through the rest of his life with that fear, you know. Because your childhood, that stuff's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to, you know, get this feeling that you're safe, that at home you're safe, and that makes you strong when you're an adult, just remembering that. But if you don't ever have that, then it's different. All right, gotta go. Bye.